Oh, okay. Does this work? Let's see.
Hello, just Michelle here again today, and I'm so excited. My journey back to wellness continues. My last video was on the topic of faith, and it was challenging because as complex a topic as that is, it's also ever evolving, and it was also situated during the many shootings, including the very public assassination of Charlie Kirk. And I prayed a lot for discernment and for God to send me clear ideas on what He wanted me to focus on, to discuss in my video. And as the subjects were unfolding and becoming clearly aligned with what I felt was on track with what I was supposed to be sharing with my own journey back to wellness, but also hopefully whoever might be watching, I met this lovely young woman who I'm so excited to have Liz join us today. Hello. We met very close to here just a couple of days ago at Urban Meditation. Liz, can you share a little bit about your journey and what brought you to Guatemala and back to Florida?
So I arrived 2 days ago in Guatemala. My mom has, like everybody else's mothers, retired here. So it's a super easy flight from Guatemala City to Miami. I left LA and went to Guatemala in 2022 because I needed a place where I could create. I needed a place that felt quiet, where I could really sort of process all of the grief that I was going through, get this art out, get these courses out, and be in a space that felt really nurturing. And when someone said Guatemala to me for the first time, I felt like my entire body bit into the juiciest watermelon, and it was like, oh, you gotta go. And so that's there. I thought I was gonna go for 2 months, and I was there for 2 years.
That's amazing.
And I'm just taking a sabbatical from Guatemala right now.
What first led you toward that intuitive healing calling? You say someone just mentioned Guatemala, and that was the moment that you thought you would be doing what you are doing now?
So I had sort of an organic healing practice that popped up in LA. Literally, I would go to a coffee shop, and then somebody would ask me, and then another person would ask me, and then all of a sudden I had this entire practice. And I was like, okay. So I was doing energy healing and intuitive work, but I always knew that creating courses, writing was also a part of it. So my intuition is something that I was born with. I sort of was born being able to tap in to a lot of things, and it took a really long time to discern what that means for me. It took a long time to understand how to operate in the world with all of that information, but specifically intuitive work is something I tried to hide from a really long time, and then in LA it was like untapped, and I just had a full practice going all of a sudden, and then it was like Guatemala, and now I'm here because I'm writing a book, and I have absolutely no idea what it looks like after 2 months.
This is such a fascinating journey. Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be part of it. So if I understand correctly, you were in LA healing from your own grief, and somehow you realized you had this real gift for intuitive, and then other people started seeking you out.
More that I knew I had it my whole life, but LA was the time where I was confronted I couldn't hide it from the world. So it was like, you know, now it's time to practice. I sort of
People actually sought you out to help heal you
Yeah,
out.
I mean everyone from celebrities, terminal illness patients, people in tech. I mean, it was crazy. I would literally just go to a coffee shop and someone would just come up to me and say, I've never done anything like this before, but will you do a session on me? I was like, okay. Yeah, it was crazy. I started with one person, and everybody was word of mouth, and everybody was referral, and it kept happening, and it was a way for me to practice.
And how did your personal story
So I've been through a lot of grief in my life. My intuition is the only thing that's kept me alive as far as my life, right? It was, my dad died when I was really young, my mom was going through some really hard things, and the only thing that I had that was a pillar was my intuition with you guys, and I was just connected forever with that. So there wasn't necessarily a moment where I said, oh, this is what I'm doing, but there was a moment when I couldn't hide it from the world anymore. So in Guatemala, I created a course, which I think you're speaking about, called From Grief to Growth. And it's a way for me to lead people into a deeper understanding of grief and how it leads to nourishment when you understand kind of the neuroscience, like the universal system of it, right? What's happening in our brain, what's happening in our body. And then when we have our unique experience of grief, because we understand what's happening in the background, now we can allow ourselves to move through it and nourish ourselves in a way that feels amazing, so it's not something that we fear or keep anymore, and grief becomes something that we sort of, it allows us to be a friend to ourselves as it makes its way beyond.
So I have a few more questions digging a little deeper into your personal journey.
Okay.
Many people carry grief silently, whether from losing loved ones or health struggles or big life transitions. What was your own relationship with grief, and how did you begin to transform it? I know you spoke on losing your father, so that's a big one.
Yeah.
Like most really, I'm sorry for that. And like your mom. But can you explain a little bit more about like how this grief was affecting you, or how you realized you needed to do something with that?
Yeah, so I think the first thing to understand is I thought that I was going to be a neuroscientist. So I'm always understanding, okay, what's happening in the brain, how is the body translating that, and then I go into the esoteric practice of my own intuition, and I think, okay, from the technology of my senses and my body, where is that leading me? So for me, grief, it's a process of life. I think a lot of people get stuck because they make a permanent home out of something that's temporary. And we're not meant to keep any emotions in our body forever. But what's interesting about grief specifically is people start to identify with how they feel wrapped up in that grief. Our bodies can't hold things, so that means that now we're gonna have to create an entire world to keep that one temporary emotion alive. And when we feel stuck, I think a lot of people who are grieving long-term, right, you have to go through like the body, and you have to cry, and you have to shake and do all that stuff, but when we start to feel like we are numb or we are stuck, it's an indicator that our brain and our body are ready to move it, and they know how to move it. And so through my own journey as someone who's experienced a lot of grief, I started to become really interested in what's the universal system, right? So what is my brain doing? How can I listen to what my body needs for nourishment, whether that be satiating certain senses or moving in specific ways or things like that, to where you can start to release. And then how does that create a teacher in a temporary space when we think about death, because we are here temporarily. So now we can take that grief as a way to deepen how we care for ourselves, and also to remind us that death is a teacher. It's not something to be afraid of. It is there waiting for us, and it's a great compass for, am I living my life in the right way? Am I keeping my body stuck? Am I keeping my intuition stuck to hold on to this one version of me when change is inevitable? Emotions are meant to move through, and grief is a beautiful lesson in who we are, who we're not, and who we want to be, what we're going to learn from it, and then who we're ready to let go of. Because we're letting go of the things that we're grieving, but we're also letting go of who we were in those moments. And I think that's really beautiful. And so when you learn how all the systems work together, it becomes like a nourishing experience versus something that is overwhelming and scary and isolating.
So while you were living in Guatemala, Did you learn anything from the culture or community there that deepened your perspective on healing or this whole process?
So not necessarily deep in my perspective, but one thing that was really amazing that I didn't see coming is, so before I went to Guatemala, when I was doing my healing practice, I had a vision that I was going to be able to do healing in a space filled with plants, and someone was just going to offer me to work there for free. And I told everybody, I was like, it's here, you know, like I see it, because I get really clear visions. They're almost like future memories to me. And I was like, wow. And then I get to Guatemala, there's an eclipse, I'm like feeling electrified, and I reach out to this guy named Pablo, who I just happened to find when I was visiting. And he has no like real advertising, and it was like something took over my body, and I was just like, Shen, Pablo. And
How did you find him?
I have no idea.
You encountered him?
No, it was like, it was like, you know, you hold on to this information, and then one day it like clicks into place, and you have no idea where you first saw that information. So I Googled something very specific. I could not tell you what it was, which only led me to Pablo. I messaged Pablo. He sent me a WhatsApp back immediately, and this is all in Spanish, and he was like, I knew someone was gonna come last minute today. And I was like, it's me. And I showed up, and I walk in, and we're talking, and then he looks at me and he goes, you need to practice here, and you can use my space for free. And it is the place that is filled with plants in this beautiful space. So that happened. Now I have a space to practice healing work, which I didn't go there for that, right? And then I got invited to learn Temazcal ceremony. So through Pablo and his beautiful space, he has a really deep, a rooted respect and heritage of Mayan healing and Mayan ceremony. And he asked me to facilitate Temazcal ceremony with him, which is a beautiful process. It's about 4 hours. And basically you go into the womb of Pachamama, and you're to the Mayans, you're sort of held in her womb, which is slightly underground, and then it connects you to like stars and everything like that. So that deepened my respect and understanding of working in collaboration with Pachamama and understanding how held we are. And so he was part of this larger vision that I had seen about exactly a year before. And it was amazing.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Also leads well into my next question. What role do you feel nature and environment play in someone's healing journey? So it sounds like this vision with the plants and the trees. You know, do you think it was unique to being in Guatemala that this had to be in that environment? Or is it just where you needed to be at that time because that was the journey you wanted to be on in time-wise?
I think that's a larger question about opening your own awareness and trusting your ability to nourish yourself. And for me, it was Guatemala. Everything led to that. Because I needed a place as an artist where I could create, I could take all of these different ideas that I've been needing to put through, and I had the space and the care and the quietness to be able to do that. So I think my intuition led me to the perfect environment, but that takes collaboration and trust, right? I could have ignored that, and I could have made life really hard for myself by doing that. So I think environment is hugely important for healing, but I don't think it needs to be this or that. I think that you are gently nudged into what that environment looks like, and is carved in all of those nudges and all of those little decisions to nourish yourself and to not betray yourself and to not distrust yourself. Because if we look back in our lives, regardless of if you followed your intuition or not, it was right. And so when we can look at the lens of that, when it tells us where to go, we know it's right.
So let's get into a little bit more about your healing works and your books. You've written a book on overcoming grief.
I wrote a course.
You wrote a course. Okay, forgive me. Again, we just met a couple days ago. We spoke very briefly, but I knew immediately this was exactly when you needed to be interviewing next, and gratefully she said yes. So you wrote a course, and you are here working on
a book.
And would you like to share the title of the book that I think you told me?
Yeah.
If I understand correctly.
So my book is called Lightning Strikes Twice, and essentially the book is about, so I just turned 40, and the first half of my life I have followed what I call my old teachers. And it's important to note that there is absolutely nothing wrong with the old teachers, right? Who I define in my book as like grief and fear and doubt and control. They led me to a magical reclamation of who I am. They led me to build a foundation of resilience and trust. But I've come to a point where I no longer need those teachers, and I'm actively pursuing new ones. So the book is the arc of all of my experiences that allowed me to truly learn the teachings of these things. And while my life may be magical to most, the day-to-day conversations that I'm having, the way that these teachers are kind of confronting me with lessons, there's something that we can all resonate with. They're conversations that we've had with ourselves, with our community, and the point of it is, you're ready to come with me. The next book is the new teachers. It's unlived, it's unwritten, but we're ready. And if you don't think you are, I guarantee you will see yourself in my journey. Even though the details might look differently, the lessons are the same, and there comes a point where we don't need to build more resilience. What we need to do is expand from that into the unknown. That's the second strike, but we don't know what that looks like yet. We're living it right now.
So is that the message you want people to take away, or what message do you hope
The
most
message,
people take away from the book?
yeah, so I think the message is, this is a remembering of all of the lessons that these teachers gave me, and through reading mine, you're remembering your own. Through hearing my experience, you're remembering who you are. You're remembering the resilience that you have. You're remembering the way that all of these things have built you into now. And the invitation is, now that we're all here by the end of it, like, let's go into the unknown together, because as a community, we're ready. And what does that look like for you? I have absolutely no idea, but I know that my journey will remind you that you're ready.
So hopefully you are ready to learn more. Now, you mentioned you have courses that are available online. If people who are watching feel ready and they are accessible to most people online, can you talk us through what someone new to this path might experience in one of your programs?
Yeah, so I have 2 courses, and then I do individual work and then obviously energy work. One course that I'll be releasing in October again, because I like to usher people through it, is From Grief to Growth, which we spoke about, and that is teaching you your grief wants to move, let it, and teaching you what that looks like for you, right? It is a space where we are looking at the universal system, our own experience, and then tapping into letting our senses and our body teach us how to release, heal, and continue. The second course is called From Numb to Nourish. I love the alliteration. And that is a much longer 8-week container. It is pretty in-depth it's basically an introduction to the language of your senses, how to nourish yourself in every single moment. It's a reclamation of generational joy, of agency, of your intuition, and it is a deeply felt experience where the people who have gone through it, they've experienced radical reconnection to themselves in a way that's my whole job. Everything that I do is only so that you can remember who you are. It is so that you can remember your agency, your intuition, your power, and reclaim generational wisdom and joy, because when that's our toolbox, the world will change. And so that's the purpose for everything that I do.
Sounds amazing. So are these one-on-one courses via Zoom?
So the courses are all done through Zoom. Grief to Growth is the next one. That's like a 4-day container. There will be a small group where we go through the information all together, and then there'll be the option to schedule a couple of kind of like office practice hours with me. The number for that one is much smaller just because it's time intensive. And then from Numb to Nourished, I don't know how the version 2 is going to be. That'll probably be in the beginning of November. Typically, it's been a group that's very small, like 5 people, and then individual and group sessions. I'm going to open it up to a larger group now, but I'm sort of figuring out what that looks like. And then with any course, because everybody asked for this, I haven't set it up yet, but every client that I've worked with has been like, well, what do I do now? Like, I want to be in this community. And so I've created a community for everybody who's gone through so that we can continue the language of our senses, generational joy, and we can have a really experiential community that is continuing to expand and grow.
So for those who might be skeptical about intuitive healing, how do you explain the process in a way that feels grounded and relatable?
I think, so what's interesting about my energy work is almost every person, I was the first person that they'd ever done anything with. And so I had these people like coming to me and they're like, I've never done anything like this before, but will you do a session with me? And I think our mind will never understand what it hasn't lived and what it can't see. So first of all, throw your mind out the window. And the second thing is, we all have the experience of walking into a space and being like, something's off. Or being like, I have to go in there. So those little moments are how you can remind yourself that you're already interacting with it. You either choose to, or you kind of let yourself walk in blind. And that's intuition, right? And again, we also have moments where we can say, my intuition led me down that road. And it doesn't matter if you did it or not. Your intuition felt it, you received it, then you got to choose.
And we should interject here. This is literally how we met. I was in urban meditation. This lovely young woman came in.
Fresh off the plane. Crying.
Was staring at the table with my Zen Garden treasures on it and my vegan skincare products. And I gave her some space and I was letting her look, and I finally said, can I help you find something? And she said she was just called to come in, and she was looking, and we started chatting, and as you can see, very interesting. I just felt like I too was called. I needed to interview her about what she does.
And that's energy.
And that is, I call it hand of God, brings people and elements, and I had been praying, I'd make it very clear, like, let me know that there are good people in my life, and bring in opportunities, and give me the words to share, and here we are. Look at us, making words. So I'm going to get into a few more questions for the viewing audience at home. So my audience is made up of people at different stages of their wellness journey. For some who feels stuck or overwhelmed, what's one small step they could take today toward healing?
Tune into your senses. We do this really silly thing as humans where we numb ourselves when we're actually here to experience everything. And if you look at how our senses interplay with our brain, even hearing, it calms the nervous system almost instantly. Touch, smell, all of these senses have an element that is directly correlated to our brain being able to regulate. The more you tap into your senses intentionally, the more that you will feel the byproduct of that connection. You don't have to understand anything else, but if you look at yourself and you say, am I numbing myself? Go back to what you've done today and tell me if you can feel anything. If not, you are numbing yourself. Tap into your senses intentionally for 20 minutes, go on a walk, and say, okay, now I'm gonna tap into sound. Now I'm gonna tap into touch, wind, sun, all of these things.
The rustling of the leaves.
Exactly.
As you're walking.
Because what you're actually doing is you're training your filter of your brain to understand that sensory information is important. And so you tap into that, and that will help no matter where you are. It's an amazing practice.
So how do you encourage people to listen to their intuition when they may have been ignoring it for years? It's a slightly different question.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same answer, your senses. We can't experience our intuition without it being interpreted by the senses. Clairvoyant, clairaudience, clairsentient, all of these are just expressions of how intuition, it feels expressed in our senses. And they were never meant to work in opposition of each other. They are intrinsically connected. So you strengthen that, your intuition comes louder because that's how you experience it, and start doing the small things. Create the trust so that when the big things come, it's not scary. Like, oh, I want to turn right. Just go right. Oh, I want to talk to this person. How many times have you felt like you need to say hi and then you scared yourself? That's your intuition. Start there, because those little things, it creates a muscle.
So what would you say to someone who feels like they don't have time, money, or energy to invest in their own healing?
I would say you are alive for a very small point of time. What are you using that time for? And that's some deep dive you need to do on yourself.
What surprised you the most in your work, either in your own journey or in the transformations you witnessed in others?
I think what surprised me the most, I mentioned that there are two people who find me, typically. People who have never, ever experienced working with energy, working with intuition before, and I'm sort of their lighthouse. Or it's people who are really finely tuned to their intuition and they are about to just expand. That was a really interesting thing. It's like, I'm the person who invites you in, but then I'm also the person who is like, and then you go out into the world. I haven't had a middle ground. I've only had those two.
That's very, very interesting. If you could leave our viewers with one message about beginning their journey back to wellness, what would it be?
I would start with the body, because that's how we experience the world. And I would say, objectively, sit with yourself and ask yourself, am I numbing? And I want that to be in your body first. Am I numbing my senses? Am I living my days in a way that I can't remember? If that is where you are, if you cannot remember the past 3 days, you're numbing your body, you're numbing your senses, and you will not get where you want to go until you make conscious effort to incorporate your body into this world, because you are here for a short time.
Where can people find your book, your courses, or connect with you if they feel called to learn more?
Yes, or energy work. So my website, you can do all of it now. It's livejubi.com, Livejubi, same Instagram name. And you can email me directly from the site, you can book with me, and then just keep an eye out for when I'm releasing my next course, which is From Grief to Growth, sometime in October. And then my book is in the process of being finished, and that will come out next year, but I don't have more details yet.
Thank you so much. And thank you for watching thus far. Please stay tuned. There's so much more good stuff. And please stay open to opportunities. Make a new friend sometimes. This is just, as you said, life is very short. And you don't have to say yes to everything, but trust your intuition. Sometimes it's all it takes. A conversation might change your perspective on life, might open a whole new way of seeing life, new opportunities. Don't give up. Just start your journey one small step today. Just watching this video is a big step. So thank you so much.
Bye.